This is Bill Kenower for Author Magazine, and this month I spoke with best-selling novelist Kristin Hannah about why so many lawyers become writers, about how our voice is really an expression of worldview and not just word choice, and finally, how writing teaches us who we are. Enjoy. All right, well, Kristin, thanks for being on the show. This is great.
Thank you. This is great.
So I want to go back a little bit because I know you were a lawyer for a time. Yeah, like you and a lot of writers.
Yes.
I'm going to get your opinion on this. Why so many lawyers become writers? What's the deal with that, do you think?
There's sort of, in my opinion, there are three hallmarks to being a great lawyer. First, you have to be able to read and analyze and understand information and really distill it down to its essence.
Right.
Which I think is the cornerstone of great writing. It's not, as I'm sure you tell your students, it's not about the general in writing, it's about the specific. And lawyers are trained to look for the specific.
Right.
They are taught to write because 90% of their arguments are written briefs to judges or,
right.
To colleagues. And so you have to be able to organize these disparate thoughts, pull them together, and come to a conclusion that is satisfying. And then third, if you want to make law, change law, affect law, you have to be creative. So you actually have in law school and in legal training, 75% of what you need to be a good, writer. The problem is that, fiction is a whole different animal. So you still have to make that bridge.
Right.
But a lot of them do. And we have cut our teeth on moments of high drama for people.
Now, were you the kind of person who's like, I want to write, but man, it's hard to make a living. I'm an A student. I got to succeed. So I'm going to go get my law degree and maybe someday, or were you just practicing law and looked up and said, this is for the birds. I want to write novels.
Actually, sort of neither one of those.
Oh, okay.
I never wanted to be a writer. Never considered being a writer my whole life. I was, the classic, teenage kid who was in the van at the Grand Canyon and dad had to say, look out the window, stop reading Lord of the Rings.
All right. Oh, Lord of the Rings. All right.
I'm a total geek.
Okay.
But, big reader. And it wasn't actually until I made it through law school that I was talking to my mom one day and she said, well, you're going to be a writer anyway. And it was shocking, because I had never even written a short story. I hadn't written one of those kids' picture books,
right.
Jesse Goes to the Farm. I hadn't done anything. And then when I got pregnant with my son, I had a difficult pregnancy and I was bedridden for 7 months. And that's when I realized, I'd really like to be an at-home mom for a few years. And now here I am in bed for 7 months. I think I will try writing. And if I can write a novel by first grade, then that will be my job. And if not, I will go back to the law. And I think that's when all of that, huge love for reading and depth of reading, and then the lawyer skills kicked in and I think gave me a little faster learning curve than some people.
I think everyone has a genius of some kind, however it manifests. I don't think you can do that unless you allow the uniqueness, whatever it is, to come through. It's got to be unfiltered, I believe.
Well, and Bill, I mean, it's like, unfortunately, what you hear as a young writer all the time is it's about voice. And it is about voice. The problem is you don't actually understand voice for a decade.
Oh,
And your
interesting.
voice is not what is the sentence.
No.
Your voice is what is your worldview? What is it you have to
Yes.
say? You know,
Yes.
so so it just takes you a while. There's just some heavy lifting here, and you kind of, I think, have to be prepared to do it. And in fact, one of the things I notice and I think about are these people, you know, every couple of years, every year, some debut novelist comes out with this knock 'em out of the park, breakout, you
Right.
know, Amy Tan kind of a novel.
Right.
And ultimately, I feel really sorry for people like this because it's one in a million who knows enough about what they did to
Right.
do that again.
Yeah.
And it's such a crippling amount of pressure.
Yeah. And then the publisher, as you know,
Oh, yes.
says, all right, do it again.
Right.
And here's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I interviewed Amy Tan, in fact, and she talked about like she's given a lot of money to write books, and
Yeah.
she does not want to disappoint. And she has to forget about all that her readers and her publisher in order to write her books because
Yeah.
and Andre Dubus said the same thing, which is like the lights are on you now. You've been on Oprah and all this, and he was like, it's harder sometimes than that first book where no one is paying attention to you.
It is. I mean, I think it's a lot, you know. I mean, I had trouble following the Nightingale, and that was like book 20, you know.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I can only imagine what that feels like if it's book 1.
Right. Right. Yeah, because at least you had some miles under your wheels, you know?
Exactly. It's
You knew how
true.
and you could kind of like I mean the only way I could think to deal with that is to say that is great, but I want this next book to feel like what it feels like to write a book. I don't want it to I've got to do what I know how to do.
Yeah, and it took me a while. You know, I spent a good long while sort of trapped in the mire of other people's expectations.
Yeah.
And
You
you
mean
know,
after the Nightingale?
yeah,
Okay.
and how do I follow up a book like this? And what saved me ultimately was the decision to fail. You know, I
Ah,
just, you know, I sort of poured myself a glass of wine and set out and said, you know what? The Nightingale is sui generis. It is what it is. Very few authors follow up something like that with something that works at that level again. So you just go back to real life and write whatever the next book is.
yeah. Yeah.
And that was you know, life-saving.
All right, The Four Winds. What book number is that?
24, they tell me.
24. Congratulations. They tell you you can lose count. It's good. It's good when you can lose count. All right. So what did you learn writing it? Like, can you even think of it? Is there anything that changed in you writing this book, even after 24 of these things?
You know, first of all, the most amazing thing to me is even on book 24, I'm always amazed that I've done it again. You know, because every time you finish a book and you look to start another one, there's that little piece of you that thinks, how can I scale this mountain again?
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
must not be able to. I think that what I sort of began learning with a book called Winter Garden, what I had to say about the world. And I think I'm just getting clearer at what it is I have to say. And the Four Winds and the Nightingale are probably the two best
Oh, awesome.
choices, you know, and representations of, like I said, me putting women at the forefront of history again in a story
Right.
that's both readable and emotional.
All right. But I got one more question for you,
Yeah.
Kristin Hannah. Here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to finish the sentence. See, I've asked you this question before, but sometimes the answer changes. This is the interesting thing. That's the interesting part. If writing has taught you anything, it's taught you what?
If writing has taught me anything, it has taught me who I am.
Right. And is that your world? Is that from the worldview that you've sort of begun to
Yeah,
articulate?
we were talking earlier about therapy. You know, in great amount, writing is therapy. You know, it is me working through all of the pitfalls and the good and the bad of my past, my history, my family, you know, all of those sorts of things. And the more I write about women and women's stories and family and all of those things, I think the more I understand what matters to me. You know, when I was young and writing, everything mattered. And as I get older, I pare down the things that truly matter.